So we're going to discuss about how NLP, like modern models, can help for proactive measurements for harmful content moderation. And so the side question will be, indeed, can NLM solve it all? So I would like to start with a citation. So understanding the problem is actually half of the solution. And also today at, I think, Alex's talk, he also was mentioning that there is a call for interdisciplinary discussions about what actually AI is going to help society or in other industries. And also, there is a question, indeed, how can NLP or AI help, for example, to moderate content? And I actually would have loved to say that we actually already understood the problem, but actually it's not so much true. And I will tell you, in this talk, what we actually as researchers know so far, and what are the challenges, and maybe what also can be some new ground for thoughts. And so let's go. And so a couple of words about myself. Indeed, my name is Daryna Dementieva, and I'm a postdoc at Technology in Munich. And I'm doing a lot of research in applying NLP for different social good aspects, like how we can fight fake news, how we can fight toxic speech, hate speech, also to support my native language Ukrainian and any other underrepresented languages. And also, so this year we're going to have the fourth workshop at NLP for Positive Impact at ACL, one of the biggest conference in NLP in Vienna during summer. If you want to come, please come. So online moderation is actually how it's happening right now. It's first of all exists, there is indeed still hate speech and any other harmful content in the social networks, and social platforms are indeed trying somehow to tackle them. However, usually what happens, there are some detectors, actually not super advanced ones, and then messages or users are just blocked. However, there is discussions that actually people sometimes don't even understand why they're blocked or message is deleted, and that can even cause even bigger hate, even bigger anger that can then be applied not only in online realm, but actually can go, unfortunately, in even physical realm. So our idea as researchers, taking into account what the research is happening around this topic was, so maybe we can have some automatic, more proactive moderation. So, and the key here is indeed automatic, because what is happening right now is that it's just blocked because there is no automatic measurements how to do something differently. And that can be indeed some warnings, explanations. So there is a whole huge call for explainable AI, so we can somehow explain why something is toxic or hateful, or why it's not okay to behave in such way. And maybe we can supposedly propose for users to detoxify their message and maybe somehow rewrite it and just make a suggestion, or maybe then write some counter measurement to what the user wrote and explaining why this something is okay. And then indeed if the user ignores already everything was happening, then indeed call for human moderator and then call for authorities or any higher measurements. So also in this slide, you're going to see further very, sometimes examples of very, very hateful and rude phrases. Of course, it's not to insult you. It's just research purposes. We have to read this as well. But actually what we're talking about, what is hate speech, what is toxic speech, or abusive speech, or whatever, what is happening with all this terminology. And there is social science, and actually they indeed thought for some time about this, and there is a list of what should be called what, actually. I really encourage you maybe to have some time and read also all this terminology. What is important for us in this presentation is that we have abusive speech going to be an umbrella term for all these different kinds of expressions that are not okay. Hate speech, if it's targeted against some group, or persons, there is a target. And toxic speech, it can be just a general toxic speech with some obscene lexicon, but it's not usually targets some very specific person or group, with some insult. And also there is this list of text abuse speech. Yes, of course there is many other things, and also in Germany there are special NGOs and companies that take into account many different aspects of what can really happen in digital realm. Of course, there is many abuse happening with images, with undesired visuals, what you can receive, and there is also, of course, a call to detect this and somehow to tackle this. But when we looked into how we can understand all these terms and actually what is happening in NLP research, but also not even there, but also what's happening with social platforms and also with kind of regulations. We know all about European DSA, and if there is even any alignment between all of these definitions or regulations, or really what is happening. So we try to have a look on this. Just for statistics, I will tell you that we looked into the countries, platforms, and papers from NLP field, around 20 per each category. And you're gonna see like, yeah, this list of many questions and a lot of text. The idea was like, yeah, to see indeed, like if in the countries hate speech is defined on the law level, if there is any understanding, like if there is online hate speech, like yeah, distinguishing between hate speech and online hate speech, what has happened, like what are the countermeasurements against like this? If there are the same definitions as the platforms, if NLP papers understand that if they're doing some research for language of the platform, if the definition aligned with the definitions, original definitions from the platform and from the country. To make a story short, like yeah, this very long text, some interesting statistics per each category. The main thing to see here is that a lot of numbers are far from 100%, first of all. Indeed, the majority of countries define hate speech. They understand like it exists. However, far from the majority realizes the difference between online hate speech and just hate speech. Also have special case of USA, you know, like what's happening with this country. Also not, there is a call, but not, of course, not also every country, but there is anyway a call to somehow have countermeasurements against hate speech. Like in whatever form it means, like there is a call for this. In platforms, also not every platform explicitly defines in the guidelines what is hate speech and what is not okay, how to behave like as their, in their community as a platform. There are even platforms without any definition about hate speech at all. Yeah, there are also not every platform verifies the users. It can be also anonymous at some platforms. It can be really a dangerous platform where you can express yourself whatever you want. And the big unfortunate thing was like, yeah, if we take into account research papers, we will see that even if papers scrap their data, like it's research, they scrap some data from open source, they do not check definitions of the platforms from where they scrap the data. So they just like, yeah, define them by themselves or from another video science papers, but not checking like what was really happening in this social platform. And even then less papers then report like what annotators then annotate the hate speech, who was their background, who they were in toll, and so on and so on. So really like a huge lack of details and a huge lack of alignment between definitions within all these categories. So yeah, from here, it's a really call. So if you're doing some research, please check definitions, please check with social scientists like in the field what you're doing your research or further technology. Like yeah, please do cross-check with the reality. Yeah. But then, anyway, like what is still, we had many data sets, we have many models open source, like, yeah, still what we have. We have some data, especially we have a lot of data for English if we want to do some classification. And also there is like a very nice page on hate speech dataset catalog. If you have a look, there are actually many data sets from many languages, also with very mixed definitions of hate speech, abuse speech, and toxic speech. But yeah, anyway, like its list is very nice, and you can really, yeah, have a look and download many of them. It's open sourced. Yeah, but then if you have the data, you can, on one hand, just go and prompt LLMs, or on the other hand, you can just fine-tune still encoders and use the data set for, yeah, supervised fine-tuning. In terms of LLMs, you can go to different also size of LLMs. It can be, for example, 25 structured LLM. It's can be mid-sized. We can go to Llama, to Mistral, or we can even go to ChatGPT. So you can see really like resources allocated for this is really very different. Yeah, but what is the results? So there are several papers already tested LLMs for hate speech classification, and we can see that if we just prompt LLMs, the results are far from being good. Even sometimes it's really like a little bit better than just random, but if you fine-tune the model, just some encoder-based model, it's really already way better results, and it's way less resources. Yeah, also about strategy for prompting, there are also like you can, of course, you can do it in different ways. You can just do zero shot, you can just few shot. Also, there can be a case that, for example, you can indeed use definition from the law or from the platform policy and then insert this definition into the prompt. You can also adjust maybe some key symbols for LLM, I don't know, with dashes or whatever, so maybe also can help. However, even with all these tricks, accuracy is, like F1 score is not super high, it's not higher than 80%, which is at the same level like it's encoder-based model. So the takeaway here is instruction-tuned LLMs, yeah, can be promising. However, to fine-tune some transform-based encoder is really still in the game, especially if you want to have a solution for many languages. It's better to collect a couple of hundreds per language and still fine-tune the encoders and go to LLM. So another technology can be, for example, to detoxify the text. What it can be, Yeah, so here are some examples. So indeed, like if you have a user that wants to maybe to post some toxic message in the social network, we can have some warning and saying like, yeah, if you're really sure if you want to post this, maybe you should rephrase this in another way. Still, also even LLMs can be quite toxic even without the safety measures trying to be taken against. You can still go and unlock toxic persona in LLMs, and it can be potentially like a chatbot in production that really can misbehave with the user. So then the solution can be maybe we can change the style of the text from toxic to non-toxic, and yeah, saving this text and also the style of the original author as much as possible. Yeah, of course, we cannot handle like all types of toxicity or abuse with this method. We can maybe tackle like what I call a very light case of toxicity. If you think about how we can rephrase racism or another really like very severe hate speech, we actually cannot, because like it's really it cannot be done like this. So we can talk about some obscene presence lexicon in the sentence. So for now, actually, we have already corpus for non-languages, like we have these parallel pairs, and then you can fine-tune a model on this corpus. And again, we have already 9 languages, and yeah, this multilingual, quite multilingual setup. Yeah, so we, for example, can fine-tune MT5XL or MT0 or MBART or any other modern sequence model. But on the other hand, so we had like a shared task, and you can see like here's a list of different LLMs people tried from Llama to ChatGPT and so on. And then the question like, yeah, if these LLMs can really handle this task. Okay, so there is big table with the final results for all the languages and what we can see. So comparing to human evaluation, like how human performs tasks to human references, for resource-rich languages, actually LLMs really can be already quite good. But yeah, because like indeed, like yeah, these languages are present in the models, and yeah, to some extent, it really can be as a human performance. However, if we look into maybe not so super present languages, the performance is really far from good. Also about Chinese, like you can see here, and you think about, yeah, but actually Chinese has really like a lot of data in the internet, like what is happening. So also with Amharic is also quite a popular language in Africa. These languages are not like Latin script languages. It's really something different. And for models, it's still super difficult to perform tokenization of these languages. So that's why like such bad performance. And also we can see that even if for some languages LLMs can be good, there is no single model that performs pretty well for all the languages simultaneously. So multilingual performance is really still a challenge. Yeah, but also we tried LLMs for explanations because we wanted to see like, yeah, actually what can be toxic in different languages, and indeed annotation with humans can be quite expensive. So that's why at least we try to generate explanations with LLMs and then cross-check with humans like what was generated. So that was the prompt. So we indeed went to this proprietary, very big GPT-4 and asked to explain, like, yeah, can you please define what was toxic span as a sentence? Can you please describe the tones, the language, and so on? And what we found out is that actually LLMs can be really very good in explanation. So toxicity detection is still not super perfect. However, it can define at least the scale, like, yeah, something is less toxic, something is more toxic. Yeah, if we want to describe like more descriptive features like tone, language type, it really can be very nice. And our annotators, native speakers, are really super surprised. It can be really very precise. And yeah, so about toxic spans, I just wanted to share with you some interesting findings. Yeah, so if you are a native speaker of any of this language, yeah, please be prepared. Yeah, so we also tried to see the most popular tokens within toxic words. And interesting thing that indeed there are universal things. Yeah, I've seen lexicon, like it can be like some things can be really pretty universal across many cultures and many languages. However, there are really cultural specifics. For example, in Ukrainian and Russian, in Chinese, there is still a stigma about the LGBT community. In Hindi and Amharic, it's a really a culture to compare like foreign styles with animals. In Germany, there is, you can see a huge discussion about refugees, and there is a play of words about this topic. So yeah, we really can see the things, and this is a call that we really need to define cultural specific corpus anyway, even like LLMs can be quite big, but we anyway need cultural specific solutions. Yeah, and we have even more languages. If you want to see our data and participate in the shared task, yeah, please go ahead and yeah, follow the links. Also, this data sets are open sourced, and yeah, also you're very welcome to check everything online. Yeah, and the last part is counter speech. So, for example, we have not just toxic speech, but hate speech. So again, like some insults against some targeted group. And then the question, like, yeah, what we can generate against this hate speech, how we can argument this, like what we can do. And of course, if you can go to any LLM right now and ask to do this, you will get some response, but then the question like how effective can be this response. And here you can see the example of not so nice counter speech. It can be offensive. For example, of course, we don't want to have like offensive response to the message. We want something more polite and more calm. Something can be really irrelevant or maybe too generic. However, if we want to have successful arguments, then we want to really target it aware countermeasurement against the hate speech. And yeah, so in this case, indeed, we have to take into account the context, at least take into account the targets group which the hate speech is targeting, and even if you can take it out, even something bigger, who is their author of the hate speech and who is the receiver of the hate speech. Yeah, really take the context as much as possible. It would be great. At least we did some experiments with their targets. In encoder-based methods, you really can have additional vector if you will incorporate into the decoder and then generate more target-aware response. And you can also see the table with numbers, many numbers, but the short story is that we want to increase the relevance and to decrease toxicity. And in this case, if we incorporate target awareness, we indeed decrease the relevance, increase the relevance of our generated counter speech. And with LLMs, the scores actually were not super great. However, if then we looked into like their examples, and here you can see example of hate speech and then different counter speech generated by Llama 3. And we can see like, either it can be super irrelevant and super generic, but if we're asking like, please really be super target aware for this hate speech, then we can have more relevant example. So final takeaways. If you really plan to do some social-rated NLP or a project, please have a look into definitions and also try to understand the problem as much as possible with law, social science, with ethics, and so on. LLMs are not the most efficient solutions for everything, but they indeed can be really good in explanations. And also, if you would like somehow to have a cooperation between human and LLM, it really can be a solution. But it's still worth the benchmark, whereas baseline, especially still transformer encoder models. Cross-lingual and multilingual models are still a challenge, and if you want to have a multicultural model, you really need to take account culture specific of different languages and different cultures. So the next steps, it would be really great to see indeed some more methods how we can incorporate this cultural knowledge into LLMs more efficiently, because now we have this big choice case that can be fixed. However, maybe we can additionally fine-tune the models and they can be more cultural specifics. And again, finally, all these ideas were from research perspective, and it would be really great to see automatic proactive content moderation in the wild and in real platforms. Thank you very much. You will be very welcome to reach out to me and this all my socials. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daryna, very much for this wonderful talk. And there aren't any questions yet, so I will start with my own. So given that, I'm a researcher myself, I was often enough I was facing the problem that you described earlier regarding annotators, right? That there's absolutely, it's not just in that domain, it's in many domains, that there's like absolutely zero information in the paper about who the annotators were, how many there were, the inter-annotator agreement seems to be like non-existent in most papers. But very often that's not laziness, but a lack of funding. So before you, because I was thinking about this question at the beginning, and I wanted to ask you how to tackle that problem, but now you gave a solution, which is, actually we could ask LLMs. But then you, in some cases, but then again, so you then give it to people to cross-check, but isn't there still a problem? Because I might give it to you and you say, nah, I don't consider it hate speech. You give it to somebody else, they say yes. So you will still have 10,000 opinions, whether something is either one or the other. Yes,
it can be still a problem, of course, yes. And in an ideal world, if we have this, I don't know, internal funding for everything, of course it would be nice to hire every person from every background, from every country to annotate hate speech. Unfortunately, we don't have those cases, but at least, yeah, right now is to find, as at least in terms of genders, for example, or at least in terms of ethnicity, like within your lab. So try at least to do something, not just only white male, and that's it. So at least some diversity already will be great.
Any more questions? Do you know how to use Slido? Okay, that's fine. We have a lot of time, so I will just walk around and hand around the mic. That's okay, we'll make an exception. It was a long day.
Thank you, hi. In that table that you showed where the human annotators were a benchmark in the first row, I was wondering why there are so big differences between the countries or between the languages. Yeah, exactly that. Like the human references, they vary a lot across language. Do you know why? Like the performance, basically.
Yes, like
level.
In this specific case, their evaluation also like was automatic, meaning that even if the text was written somehow like by humans, how toxic or non-toxic was this text is also identified by the model, by classifier. Then how similar is text like to the original saving the content, it was also assigned similarity between LLMs and again, it was some model. And of course, again, like their equality of scores between languages in those multilingual models is not equal. Like it doesn't exist because the pre-trained data sets were of different sizes. So we don't know, like indeed, like if in the space, these clusters of languages are really equally distributed. We don't know this. And like anyway, like we know that it's far from being perfect. So that's why it's like the scale for each language is different. So that's why we're providing like this score for human references. At least we can see that human text performed like this by these models, and then we can compare all other models with these references.
Okay, thanks.
I think there was somebody else who was raising their hand, because I also got one on Slido, so I'm just thinking whom to... So you submitted this? Ah, okay, cool, then let's read it out. How do you tackle emojis? Nowadays it feels like a common language for young people.
Yes, actually, it's a good question. Also, I didn't mention in like this slide since the beginning, so we also actually have statistics, or at least we tried to catch the statistics about from which years were the posts scrapped from the social networks. And it's actually a really super important question, especially after COVID events, especially after war events, Russian invasion to Ukraine, especially what's happening in Palestine and Israel. So again, like in many countries, the mood is very much different and the topics are different, and which emojis are used and also even how emojis are used is also changing. And we didn't specifically look so much into this. However, yeah, like even words can change the meaning and become hateful at after some events. So it's really like, yeah, something to take into account, of course. We didn't tackle this, but yeah, it's a field for future research.
Hi, do you know if there are already like plans, I don't know, to exclude basically hate speech from the training data for those big LLMs? Or particularly like in Europe, probably yes, but do you know if it's already done, like in the future, in the past, and how it's gonna happen? Because this is kind of like the reason why LLMs produce hate speech, because they already seen it.
Yes, actually, it's a good question, and I think there were tryouts to make it. So people just, yeah, indeed, like filter out by some classifier. Again, like it's not manual filtering, it's by some classifier, and they filter out something. If it was good or bad, like we don't know, I don't remember. So it was not something very spectacular. At least we know that it wasn't like some safety progress, like it solved everything. But actually, it's also a question like if we really should filter it. Because if the user will then write some hate speech, and maybe the model still should identify like, yeah, it's hate speech, and I need to write something like maybe like again counter speech, like some counter response to this hate speech. Yeah, so I also can point out here there is indeed like research from Meta to fight hallucinations and to prevent toxic token generation during the inference time. So there is like this research from No Language Left Behind team. I really like can recommend to check it out. And I think also another problem here, indeed, like how to identify this toxicity even for tokens or for instances, because yeah, if we have some classifiers, they can give you some F1 score or 95 on some data set. If it really covers all toxicity in the world, maybe not. So still there can be something in the corpora. I think, yeah, it's a good research question, it still can be another research problem.
Thank you. And another question, I really like this one. I haven't thought of it myself, but now I'm like, that's a good one. Is there any research of LLM performance of content moderation of politically funded speech in online settings, so-called troll farms? I will not mention any country specifically.
Actually, I cannot recall like any specifically, I don't know, paper tables that will give you these results for troll detection. I think like there are definitely data sets. Again, not recent ones. So I think maybe of the year like 2017, 2018, about how we can identify the trolls in the internet. And I mean, so definitely there is research right now how we can detect AI-generated texts, like for sure, but I really doubt like there is any open data set on AI-generated social media posts.
It's also usually not based on what they write, but like other metadata, whether it's from a troll farm or not. Yeah, absolutely. Are there more questions? Still have 4 minutes. Yeah, well, it's been a long day.
Yes.
Cool, then I don't know, then let's finish the session early. Daryna, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much as well.
Deserves a round of applause.